Khalif, if you want to watch chat,
Okay.
if you can do that, and
Yeah. Go.
monitor a little bit and see how things sound.
Yep.
All right, cool. That's good.
So, how's Astoria, bro?
Everyone can hear you.
Good, man.
You're
Like,
on
you
stream,
know,
so listen.
it's far from work, unfortunately, is the actual answer. But it's good. I like it a lot. You know, I'm glad I'm here.
All right, cool. All right, everyone ready?
It,
We're gonna do
yeah.
it 3, 2, 1.
I'm ready.
Record button. And then I'm gonna turn this off because I'm on call, so I can definitely have my freaking job page me right now. And it's loud as hell. It makes you sound like you're about to die. All right, so everyone, 3, 2, 1, hit your record button.
Oh, you hit the recording? Sorry, I missed my recording
No,
there.
you're fine. You're fine.
I'm on now. We good.
Yeah, just hit your record
All
button.
right.
And you're gonna
Yep.
test your levels out. Make sure you
Test your
Check
level.
1, 2. Check 1, 2.
1, 2.
Where do you like levels at on these?
Ba 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 ba
You
ba.
can bring it into like -8, -6.
Okay. Yeah. We're good.
Yeah. All right. Cool. All right. And everyone, you're gonna count down into your microphones from 5,
5, 4,
3,
3,
2,
2,
1.
1.
Welcome everybody to the Spawn of Me podcast. I'm your host, Khalif Adams. This is episode 186 of our show. I'm joined this week and every week with my man, my mellow, the smooth kind of fellow. He would be on the 96 Knicks all-time 2K team. It would be my man, Cicero Holmes. How are you, sir?
What's up? I am the enforcer. I've spent the last week watching a lot of Inglorious Bastards. Yeah, I just want to let everyone know that you have taken on a debit. You owe me 100 Nazi scalps,
What?
and I want those scalps.
What are you talking
Just
about?
100. Just
Yeah.
100.
Well, hey, listen, we can start at 100. You know, you gotta set your goals low,
Yeah, that's fair.
and then you can you can shoot for the stars, man.
Stay trying to overachieve. You know what I mean?
That's right. That's right.
Oh my god, I don't even know where this goes. Where does that go? Where do you go from there? You go to your other man, your mellow, the smooth kind of fellow, the man who makes gaming looks good, who makes STEM look good, who makes tutoring look good. It is Sharif Jackson of SharifJackson.com. How are you, sir?
What up? What up? I might not be on the 2K Greatest Nick team, but I am equivalent to Charles Oakley playing in the Big Three, elbowing people, fouling people. 53 years old out there fouling Steven Jackson in the face.
Oh my god.
Oak represent, yo.
Yeah.
Oak is just hurting everybody. He just hurts people for no reason, and it's just like not okay that's the thing. Like you can tell he gets into fights even when you don't expect him to get into fights. Like
It's just super weird because I don't think anyone wants to really lay into him because he's 50 and he has he's like obviously super gray,
Right.
but he's still Oak. So it's like, do I lay him out and get risk of hurting somebody old, or do I lay him out and get risk of him like literally doing a spinning pile driver on me on that?
oh god.
Like it's crazy.
Well, I mean, he's still in shape though. So
Yeah,
that's
he's
the
in
thing.
Mhm.
Like, don't look at the grays. Look at the abs or the pecs.
Look at the plays. That's it.
Yeah,
Exactly. If
yeah,
he's out
there
there
you go.
playing,
There you go.
That's it.
There you go. Don't look at the grays. Look at the plays.
plays.
Look at the plays.
That man who just did the best Clyde Frazier impression that we have up in this bad boy. We have the one, the only EIC of Waypoint, Austin Walker. How are you, sir? How's everything going?
Always good when I'm here, man. It's always good to see y'all. It's been busy but good. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be I was here a year ago, and was it a year ago, 2 years ago. When was I first on?
Yeah, it was like almost a year.
It was 2 years
It
ago.
was 2 years ago.
No.
Busy.
It was a year ago. It was 2016.
Yeah,
right
right,
before E3.
Yes, it was right before E3, and it's been I thought that first year that people knew who I was was busy. That second year was too much. So I'm just thrilled to be back. I'm thrilled to be able to like button down and like have a real conversation with people who I love. So glad to be here always.
I love
awesome.
you, fam. I'm so happy to see you. And it's been, like you said, it's been a while, and so many things have happened in that short amount of time. It's been
good and bad. Like
madness.
thinking about it, there was a time, I guess it was like 2014 is when I wrote this thing where it was like my game of the year thing, and like thinking about, I thought about like I'd gotten a little bit of an audience. This was like 2014. It was also 2014, which meant it was like black bodies in the streets all year. It was the birth of Black Lives Matter. It was Gamergate. It was like you could see the little corners of the alt-right starting to come together across things, not just in Gamergate, across the web.
Right.
And it was just like, it was wild. And I wrote a thing that was basically like my good year, where it was like, oh, I had a really good year, but it's hard for me to swallow that when also the world is on fire. And that was 2014. So like 2016, 2017 has been, whew. Oh man, it is. But here's what I'll say is the difference between then and now is at the time I was like, I don't know how to deal with the fact that I had a good year when the year was bad.
Right.
Now what I say is like, I'm blessed to have had a good year. I'm thankful to have had a good year because hopefully we, like people like us, can help make the bad year a little bit better for other people. Yeah. The fact that we had a good year is proof that like, this is not just backwards momentum. It's like, it is a struggle. It is like football, right? Like it is like you're gaining 5 yards and maybe losing 3 on the next play, or you're losing 7, but then you get a good running game going, you get a good long pass. And so bit by bit, I think we're pushing forward.
Yeah. And it's been so good to just see all the things that you're hitting, all the conversations that you're getting yourselves into, all the stuff that has been like, I didn't know that the next time that I would see you that you would have run up on Jaden or Shia LaBeouf.
I forgot about that. For me, that's wild about that is, so for people who don't know, they were doing, I did a thing at this He Will Not Divide Us, which was a thing that, what's his face, Shia LaBeouf set up right after or on the day of the inauguration or the day after the inauguration or something of Donald Trump. And it happened on my block. Like, if I look out my window, I can basically like spot that spot. Wow. It's like far. It's not like right there, but like it's close enough for me to be like, I could hear Nazis once they started coming through. Like once the alt-right started crashing and were like doing laps of my neighborhood, just shouting like nigger, 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 and like shouting at women. Like I could hear it all the time. Oh my God. And so I'm glad I went down there on the first day before it was completely wild. 1, 2, now I have a bunch of stories of Shia LaBeouf coming into the Starbucks that's near me, grabbing my knee and being like, "What you said was really intense, bro. Bro, that was really,
really?
Like, yeah, really.
That was the hardest thing that he could cut. Yo, bro, that was really intense. Did he do the just do it?
That's why he said was like, that's why we're doing this, bro. That's why. Things like that. And I was like, all right, man. I saw him drop a venti coffee all over the floor, highlights, just like everywhere.
Blowing his spot.
And then the thing that actually really happened though was like the MAGA dudes started coming in. The dude Baked Alaska, the guy who's like needs some milk. He was like he's the dude who I'm talking about who's like leading people around, saying slurs and shit. And like they just all like chilled in the Starbucks that I work out of on the weekends, and so that was wild. Like, yo. It was a weird way to kick the year off.
What kind
I mean, it was only indicative of what the rest of the fucking year is going to be like.
Of course.
You know, I mean, come on.
Whatever your expectations are, it's right. But again, like at the same time, on the other hand, y'all were at E3, and that was incredible. So, like, it's not equal. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I
on many sides. On many sides.
I am still convinced that you somehow duplicated yourself at E3 because every time I turned around, you were there, and I thought maybe you had like the little transformation chamber, like the Stefan Urkel of Austin was like running around going to meetings, because I was like, how is he everywhere?
Yo,
Like-
the trick ended up being, so one was, and don't, like, here's some words of advice if you're ever in this position. Don't ever be the person who has to book all of E3 for your whole crew. Do the thing where you each book your own days and just let yourself live that, because I booked every appointment for my whole crew that weekend, or that whole week.
Oh my God.
Which is like wild, because there's a lot of just like, all right, who did I send to go see F1 2017? Like, what? Oh, that conflicts with some other game I don't know the name of. Like, because that's often what happens. You get a thing from Microsoft where they're like, oh, we got an untitled game.
Right.
And you have to make the call, which is like, all right, is this going to be some cool new shit I haven't heard of? Or is this going to be like the downloadable version of Forza for this year? Like, which is fine. But
right.
Is it going to be Crackdown 3
Yes.
or Crackdown 3?
Yes. So it ended up being a situation on the plus side was like, I could do the thing of like, I can make all my appointments be exactly what I want because I'm in charge of it, because I'm making the appointments. And two, I can plan it out so that I can get from point A to point B pretty easily, because otherwise it's dangerous to try to get like across the entire place, you know, in a quick time. So
yeah, I think.
What did you think of E3? Like, obviously y'all did an E3 episode already, but like, that was your first E3 as Spawn on Me, right?
Well, I had gone last year. We went. C and I went last year, and then it was Reef's first year this year.
Okay, that's what
it was my first one.
I ran into Reef at the Sony press conference.
Yeah,
it was his first year, so I thought like, okay, maybe it was the whole thing, the whole crew.
We still haven't all been in the same place at the same time.
Man, yeah, it's true. Because like a singularity would happen.
Right.
You know, I really enjoyed it. I mean, it's kind of my first E3, so a lot of the kind of gripes about, the extra people and stuff, I was like, whatever, yo, this is my first joint. Yeah. I did I just feel like, I'm really confident about our show and what we bring. So even though we're not, sort of like, the IGN or the Waypoints of the world, I always felt confident going into every meeting, talking to every dev, talking to every publisher. I feel like we did great things. I mean, we did a ton of episodes, and I'm just really proud of them. And like, I love like these dudes that like helped, like all three of us just put in the work. And
totally.
I'm just really happy with it. Really happy with it.
Some of my favorite shit you guys have been doing is figuring out how to work bigger places with angles that other people don't work. Like the Xbox diversity stuff is something that like nobody else fucked with that. Nobody else knew to put eyes on that. Put eyes there, do interviews there, like work on that, and the result was really good. So keep up that shit. That is like, for me, the number one tip for anybody who's trying to break in is like, find the angle no one else is hitting. And y'all keep doing that, so keep it up.
Thank you, fam. It means a lot, because it's hard to try to figure out where those angles are and poke into doors that you're not supposed to be in, and ask those questions and hit those people up.
That you're supposed to be able to be in, and then you still can't get in.
Oh, so. I mean, every time you saw me, I was like runaway slave sweat. I was just like, I think we got in there. Did we get in there? All right, we're good. All right, keep going. So, oh man, it's been a crazy year. It's been a crazy year. Speaking of, crazy year is like the understatement right now, right?
Yes.
It's been eventful couple of weeks in a way that I didn't expect to be talking about.
That's been like the whole thing with 2017 is like 2016 felt like a cliff, like a slow incline that eventually became a cliff.
Right.
This year it's just where it was like, man, 2016 fucking sucks. Like man, I can't wait for 2016 to be over.
Right.
Right, because everyone's dying.
And 27, right, exactly. It was like all our heroes are dying. Like whoever your hero is, gone.
Right.
They dead.
And then they all knew each other, and they all dead. They all knew. They got the fuck out, man.
They haven't skated this.
They haven't. You know that bit? You see you've seen the performance that Prince did with while my guitar gently weeps. And he throws the thing out.
Right.
We know where they went. They went where that guitar went, man. They were like, Prince was like, I have a way out. Follow me. And just like came up, and like Bowie came up, where everybody came up with it. But 2017 is the opposite in a weird way, which is just like incredibly manic. Like every week There's a surprise. Like there's a 5 p.m. Friday crazy news drop that you could not have expected.
Yep.
There is. I wake up in the morning and check Twitter, and I'm like, "What is going on?" Or like I said the other day on Waypoint Radio, like I was at home chilling with my family, and like I thought it was just gonna be. I was like, okay, I got home at like 4 or 5. I didn't see any crazy new shit. I hadn't seen the Charlottesville stuff coming at all.
Right.
And we sat down. I played No Man's Sky with my mom for like 5 hours to show her like, oh, they dropped this patch. Like you've seen me write about this game before. And then I stopped playing and looked at my phone, and it was just like the swing from like the chillest relaxation vibes of No Man's Sky to like they have torches. They're hitting people with torches, like corny ass tiki torches, but still like that. So shots of like the 5 or 6 or 7 like college kids who were protesting at the center, surrounded by that crew, is like I did not expect that.
No. If you pulled out your Ouija board back in late 2016, you were not like, oh, this is going to look like the worst version of the beginning of a Castlevania game that you've ever seen in your life. The thing that's wild is like people like us were saying it's going to get bad. It's going to get bad.
Right.
Y'all, it ain't good. And at the same time, I still feel like it was surprising the degree to which, or seeing the image, like, if you would ask me last year, could this happen? I think we all would have said yes.
Right.
But seeing it is still a different thing.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. I was talking to some coworkers today in a meeting, and as we were waiting for everyone to join via conference call, they were saying, sitting around, the idle banter, like, "Whoa, the world is really crazy right now," and. And as the obligatory diversity I take that away. I take that back. As the obligatory diverse American in the group of people, because I work in IT, so there are a lot of Asians. So what I said to them was that they said, "Oh, what does the man on the street have to say?" Well, I said, "Well, the man on the street has been telling you guys that there's been traffic, and you motherfuckers just got in your cars." So,
But
here's the thing,
it was very tough for me because, as you said, Austin, like last year, we would all said, yeah, like the Trump election is going to embolden people to come out, but I honestly could not make it through that like Vice HBO documentary, which again, I have no idea how they even got it up this fast.
Let me tell you, like all nighters. We had crews down there. We had people who were not even part of the crews down there. Like the thing that was wild about that, the thing that's the best thing about working where I work is that there are people who really care about this stuff for real. Which I'm not dissing where I've worked before at all, but like Giant Bomb was a game site first. And CBS Interactive does not have like a news division that isn't like the CBS news division, right? So like the CBS news division is very mainstream, very like not just like mainstream media, but like it is a very like traditional news outlet.
They're very fake news. Very fake news.
Whereas like the people at Vice are. And like, I'm not saying people can't have problems or whatever with Vice's coverage in the past, blah, blah, blah. But the people there like legitimately care about this stuff because they want to be there. One of my friends over at Noisy, Kim, who like covers like metal for them and hard rock and stuff, is also like very politically active and went down there and was like 5 feet away from that car. Like she was with that group of anti-fascist protesters. And like I was following her stuff on Twitter. I was like messaging with her and like making sure she was okay and all that. And that's on top of the film crews that went, the other like the politics writers who went, the culture writers who went. And so like it's cool to be at a place where even though I didn't know that stuff was going to happen, the people around me were smart enough and clued in enough to be like, we should be there. Like there's a chance that this could be a big deal. We should be in the right place. And that's how you end up getting footage like that. And then you have just incredible editors and producers who are back home like, all right, how do we do this? What are the storylines? What were the good like interviews? How do we put this together in a way that it gives you a feeling of what it felt like there, the level of threat that was there, the level of hate that was coming off of those people. Like I saw a lot of people say that doc was good, but also like how you shouldn't give platforms to Nazis. And I absolutely want to say I get that argument.
Right.
But also I've seen a lot of liberal folks who are like very safe. They live very safe lives and have not, no one's come at them with a baseball bat before.
Right.
No one has, shouted nigger at them. No one has threatened to, not just hurt them, but like hurt them in ways that would leave their lives changed.
Right.
And so for them to see that was powerful, I think. And I've seen a lot of people wake up to the fact that like, Nazis, like, they're not
right.
They don't it's not just states' rights. It's not just it's not just a taxes thing. It's not just
heritage,
right? Like it really truly is that they don't believe some people are. Like they don't believe it. They don't believe that some of us are people, and so, or they think that like white culture is somehow like fuck out of here. I don't know.
Right.
So, but like seeing that for real with an, because when we say that, like I think people don't hear it because
no, they don't. They don't.
They don't hear it for a lot of reasons. So.
But here's the thing that I've been struggling with for the past 38 years. So has been the thing that is when I sit back and see that amazing piece, because that piece was fantastic. It was so well shot, and she's amazing. I can't remember her name off the top of my head right now, but she was amazing to jump into.
I've written down somewhere.
Yeah, I've been trying to figure out ways to get her on and talk to her about this, but it's like the thing that always bugs me out is, like you just said, there's a section of humanity that does not see us as human beings.
Yep.
I always try to reach back, and I know you're not supposed to think about this in a rational way because it's not rational. It's not from a place of truth. But it's like, you ever want to think about just who was the first person? Who is where's the origin point? Where is the patient zero?
Who's patient zero?
Yeah, who's racism
of like
zero?
Not just racism, but like virulent. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of like, okay, do you know the story of how two people came up with calculus at the same time?
Yeah,
I think that's how it was with racism. Like, I think because we know that people, we know that throughout history, like the way in which humans divided themselves along lines of power relations and identity, whether that identity was like skin color or ethnic group or linguistic group or culture or diet or like any of this stuff, religious practice, like it's old. It's
super old, right?
And like, I guess the question for me is like, does it start at alibi? Does it start at like, man, I really don't like that motherfucker.
Right.
I'm gonna say it's because he's black, or is it something like a lot more? I don't know, like not more ingrained, but kind of more abstract than that. A loose feeling that like, oh, these people who are different are a threat. Right. The people who are like me, the people in my family, the people in my culture and my tribe, whatever, are like, they're mine. They're safe. They're vetted. I don't know. It's. I wish there was an easy answer for that.
Yeah.
Man, listen. So the worst part about it, or I guess the worst part about it was watching everything that happened, and I think the part for me that is both painful and necessary is the fact that now white people are woke. America, woke America now. But it's that I've been on Facebook and I've used Facebook. I use Facebook for a lot of different things, but the thing that I use Facebook for the most is to talk about very, very controversial racial politics. Because eventually someone who has a differing point of view will pop up into the conversation, and I enjoy having those conversations. But the thing that I've been imploring my white friends to do this time around has been to, be a New Yorker. If you see something, say something.
Say something.
Right.
Yeah.
And the fact is now they are saying something, and it pains me to have to say that I need you to advocate for me in order for me to live better.
I mean, that's part of the fucked up shit about racism, right? Is right. there is a degree to which all right, this is the slightest plug. I'm gonna just slide a plug in real quick.
Nice.
So I do a tabletop role playing game podcast called Friends at the Table.
Amazing show. Amazing show.
Friends at the Thank you. You can support us on Patreon, friendsattetable.cash. But there was a character in we did like a holiday special that was like about like you. Okay, I know where y'all are from, so you know how sometimes a community will like get a tax break for small businesses.
Oh, yeah.
So like black folks can try to start businesses. So we did that, but in like a fantasy world, basically, where it was basically like all of the ostracized fantasy races and like the immigrant cultures of this fantasy city were trying to make like a strip mall, basically, like in this big fantasy city. And in it, there's a narrator who is this like big, boisterous, like demon dude. And he says at the beginning, he's basically saying like, hey, I didn't believe that people who are on the down could get up, basically. And what he says is, people get thrown in the pit over and over and over again, but people in pits build ladders. And it's like this, like, oh, word, like, yeah, you can struggle out of there. But the entire moral of that like little mini campaign was, yeah, but somebody else controls the hammers and the nails. Somebody else has the boards. Somebody else was able to kick the ladder down. And so the way racism functions is like at some point, someone up top has to help pull that ladder out a little bit, or you have to do revolutionary action that most people are not committed to doing, right? Like you have to be Haiti, where you go like, nah, fuck this. Like, nah, nope, it's us.
Right.
And we are not in a Haiti situation right now.
No.
Probably.
Let's hope not. Let's hope not. I don't want those earthquakes.
And so like that to me is like part of the fucked up thing, though, is like you can help yourself. You can get yourself in position. You can make local gains. You can help push local policy. You can support each other in a community. You can support like businesses owned by minorities, by LGBTQ folk, by people in poverty who are really pushing to try to do stuff. You can farm locally. You can work. You know what I mean? Like you do all sorts of stuff to help the world. But at some point, there are going to be walls that are really hard for you to push through, like without somebody on the other side building a door for you, and it sucks. Like it is so frustrating.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, the interesting thing is, I was talking to a friend of mine the other night about this, and I was like, the thing that kills me about the situation that we find ourselves in is you constantly see the differences in ways that we're treated versus other folks. And then you also have the version of false equivalency that we see that is constantly being pushed out. Now the alt-left, quote unquote, is now a supposed thing.
Miss me with that.
I know.
Exactly.
So miss all of us with that.
Especially because
go ahead.
The thing that kills me with it is, I'm not going to say like where it came from originally. I don't know who the first person ever in the history of the world to say alt-left was.
Right.
But the way it's used often by like the center, by the right, is to say like, oh, it's the left that is like more concerned with economic rights than race. Y'all, I'm black.
Right.
Like I care a lot about race.
Right.
I am part of the thing that you would call the alt-left.
Right.
But also like, yo, fuck racism, obviously.
Right.
Like it is this thing that gets built up because I don't know. There's a lot of contention over what the future of progress looks like in America and where the future of progress can happen and what we're willing to trade in. And like to put it all out there, the thing that frustrates me, like third or fourth on the list. First is obviously the most fucked shit, right?
Right.
But the thing that frustrates me in the middle of that top 10 list is people who are allies on certain issues, things like race, things like gender equality, sexuality equality, things like all that other stuff that is really, really, really important, like very, very much vying for the number one thing I want to work on, but who are committed to a certain way of organizing society around profit, around, everything has to be about the bottom line, and who think that is good for all that other stuff, and who don't engage with the ways in which like capitalism and big businesses and things like Citizens United work against the same people in minority and marginalized identities. Like they don't see how Citizens United can fuck up small black-owned businesses, or how it can fuck up, queer centers, or any of that stuff. Like how it can fuck up women's reproductive rights. Are you kidding me? Like, ugh. So the alt-left thing just bugs me out, man. Like it's.
Yeah, I mean, it bugs me out, especially because you talk about progress. Yeah. I thought the one thing that we progressed on is that Nazis are bad.
right.
Like this is literally like Captain America era, 1940s era stuff. Like,
but we didn't even then, right? Like, here's the thing to remember, and like this is the shit this is where like I even make sure I say white supremacists sometimes, and not only Nazis.
Right.
Is we didn't get in the war to fuck up Nazis. Like we did fuck up Nazis. I'm glad we fucked up Nazis. Right. We got in the war because of Pearl Harbor. We got in the war because
fuck up some Japs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was a couple years late. It was a couple years after the war started.
Yep.
Exactly. We were very, willing to sit back and watch that shit happen. We were very willing to let there be, local, National Socialist, German American meetings. We were very willing to put the Japanese in internment camps. Yep. We were not like these great crusaders for equality when we entered that war. And, white supremacy did not start with the Nazis in Germany. My dude, like, my guy, like, this goes back way earlier than that. The Nazis looked at the KKK and were like, oh yeah, they got some good ideas. Like,
right.
You can't, so which is why I do my best to say Nazis, because they are Nazis in a lot of cases, but also to say white supremacists, white nationalists, to keep it mixed up, because that's a way, as a writer and as a journalist, you can make sure that you're not over prioritizing a single narrative that like has a bunch of like extra weight on it. Like I need us to remember, Nazis were here before there were Nazis.
Right. Right.
So, yeah.
So somewhat back to video games.
Sure.
Yeah. So you are the EIC of Waypoint, and which is for those of us who are not initiated, Waypoint is the gaming arm of Vice. Vice Media, Vice News, and for those of you who understand Vice, know just like we talked about, they were on the ground in Charlottesville. They have the most raw and accurate footage of the messages that those fucking assholes with tiki torches wanted to spread.
And white polos. They got the white polos also.
Yeah, they did. And
they're on like bring your son to the golf club day. They're there.
Little derbies and Kangos and all sorts of just.
Can't believe they took the Kango. I can't believe.
Exactly. It's so
L, come on, you got to step in.
Right.
He really does.
He licked his lips.
After the track with was that Kenny Chesney?
Yes, Kenny Chesney.
I know.
Exactly.
I forgot
about it.
I did.
Wow.
I'm really mad. That just made me so mad now that you brought that back up.
But that one about the chains where he was like,
I'm so happy he's got eaten by that damn shark. I'm so happy he got eaten by that shark. Deepest, bluest shark ate his ass because he was taking that shit.
He didn't get eaten by the shark.
He survived.
Oh, we need to redo that movie and put him back in it and then get him killed.
Oh, we all look the same to you, Kaz? Is that what it is?
And now to our break.
Right. So back to Waypoint.
Right. Yes.
All the way around back to Waypoint. Waypoint is the gaming arm of Vice. And much like Vice News and Vice Media, you guys really pull no punches, and there are no holds barred in the way that you cover games, the way that you have conversations about games, the way that you have conversations about the people within gaming. Both in Waypoint Radio, your daily podcast that I'll plug for you right here.
Appreciate the plug, always.
Yeah, no problem. And in all of the writing with the wonderful staff that you have there, how much of that was Austin Walker, EIC? How much of that was the type of people that you wanted to bring in and have those conversations? How were you able to push those conversations along and keep them coming?
It's a mix, right? Like I definitely think first and foremost it is it is a collaboration with my staff. Like, we are constantly pushing each other to try to step further into something that we, when we were at traditional outlets, would not have been able to do. There were definitely times where, like, I ran a column a couple weeks ago that was just like shitting on a David Brooks column. Like, it had nothing to do with video games at all. But
Right.
that column was garbage, and I realized, like, oh, hey, does this sound like a thing I should write about? And the staff was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, yes, like, we talk about culture here. This that counts, right? Like, so it's definitely a lot of encouragement from each other, a lot of pushing each other to do the hard story. Like, Patrick Klepek, who is our senior reporter, came to me back in March, I think, about wanting to do a profile of a guy who was addicted to opiates, and through his addiction became kind of addicted to video games also, or at least put a lot more hours into gaming when he was in his when he was in his addiction, basically. And that was a story that he probably could have done at Kotaku. He probably could have done it at the Giant Bomb. But it was also a thing that I didn't make him fight for, that I didn't make him try to like I get it. Yes, like the point of Waypoint is to show people how and why we play. It's to look into the corners of gaming that aren't tied to a press cycle, that aren't tied to new product releases, that aren't tied to like the again, profit motive, right? Like, and so I want you not only to do that story, but I want you to take months and like stay in contact with this dude, right? Like, both Patrick and my senior editor, Rob Zachney, are both on big investigative stories right now, on top of doing their like normal critical and kind of like smaller news coverage stuff, right? Like, yeah, Rob just put out a story yesterday about like a Dota AI bot or whatever. Like, that was a quick little thing he did in the afternoon. But then, like, I know he was working till 9 p.m. like talking to people about this larger investigative story he's putting together. And so being able to encourage people to do that work and say like, hey, we want to do the stuff that other places maybe they would let you do, maybe, but like it would feel like it was a favor to let you do it. We want to do that as part of the lifeblood.
Right. Yeah.
And so that is partially like, that was my goal when I came in. That's what I interviewed on. Like I said, I don't want to make a site that is just like the traditional press cycle stuff. And it's also Vice. Like the day after, not the day after, but a couple of days after the election, we had our big, like, all the editors-in-chiefs of all the different editors-in-chief of all the different websites under the Vice umbrella. So, like, me, the person who was running Motherboard at the time, the people who were at Vice and Noisy and all that stuff. We all got together. We always have these big meetings anyway every week. And we had one, and the mood was, as you might expect, like, just, like, yo, we fucked up. Like, we didn't push hard enough, or somehow it felt like it was on us, even though it wasn't. Like, even though it's not how it works, even though I think our coverage of the election was really good. We didn't do any of the false equivalency shit around Hillary and Trump in the lead up. Like, I think our coverage was solid, but we still felt like we fucked up. And what my boss said to us was basically like, all right, like, it is time to get back on the horse. In 2017, here are the 5 things every single site is going to hit. We're going to talk about global climate change. We're going to talk about, marginalized people in America. We're going to talk about reproductive rights. We're going to talk about immigration policy, and we're going to talk about healthcare. Everybody has to hit those. Right. I don't care if you're writing about games or food or culture or music. Everyone is hitting those because those are American issues. Those are world issues right now. And being able to be in that conversation and not feel like I was in a corner somewhere, not feel like, oh yeah, wait, and also Waypoint, you'll do video game coverage. Like, no, like, you're at that table. Like, so we could talk about the shitty things that we saw in other news coverage, so we could figure out how to do it better. Should we do more stuff in Minneapolis? Should we do more stuff that's not on the coasts? Like, how do we figure this out? And that's for everybody to figure out. And so that, like, I have to say that the support we've gotten from Vice to figure that stuff out and to do the political minded podcasts, like, and editorials and all that stuff, and all, it has been huge because not having that support would kill us. Like, you need that support to be able to do that stuff. Partially because we come from a background where we don't do that stuff. Like, none of us have written about a healthcare policy before. We're smart. Like, we read, we do research, we've written other sorts of stories, but healthcare policy is fundamentally different than power-ups. Like, it's not the same thing. Like, I can tell you why I wish shotguns weren't power weapons in Destiny 2. I can tell you what I feel about healthcare, But it's a different thing to write journalistically about healthcare or to edit journalistically. So
what about the chickens that you get from the garbage can?
that's how I'm going to heal up in the street rage too. That's what I know. Go straight right away, and then there's 2 trash cans. You hit the 2 trash cans.
Well, hold on, and you have within the vertical already. You already have one person doing, or a couple people doing a whole bunch of stuff about weed. I know that y'all can do a Magic Mushroom Mario write up anymore. On that.
Listen, real talk. We stopped doing it. Advice. We stopped doing anything. Here's what happened. We got a TV network. And the second you get a TV network, it means you have to have X dollars in a bank somewhere.
Yeah.
And that means people want to sue you on some shit. And so legal was like, all right, no more I did LSD and then danced. And then went danced on top of an alpaca story. Stop that shit. Get rid of that.
That was my reason. That was my only reason for watching Viceland.
Because it was for a long time. Like, there's still documentaries in the archives that are like, I did acid and then went to the Westminster Dog Show, which is like hilarious. They were like, no, we're not allowed to do that anymore. You can only do weed stories. And then you have to also be able to say for sure that they were in a state where weed was legal. So
here's a quick question about that, because one of the things that I remember when we first had a conversation about the possibility of any of this stuff happening was like way back. And I was like, just heard of Viceland and was like in love with Viceland, because I think Viceland currently right now is literally the best channel on your cable box right now. I feel like they do they do fantastic work. Their cinematography is amazing. Right. I was always wondering, like, how is it that you guys haven't like folded into that somehow, because it seems like the perfect fit.
Yeah, there are definitely things that we worked on and we're still working on that might wind up on a Viceland, right? Okay. Like it's complex thing in that you are trying to pitch to a very specific audience, which you think like really wide, because it's, Viceland has everything from Tyler, the creator, doing kind of a how do you make it show now called Nuts and Bolts that seemed really dope, to the Action Bronson stuff, or, around cooking, to obviously Deezus and Mero, who are like the best in the nighttime slot right now, the late night slot. Deezus and Mero have it on lock.
Mm-hmm. Brand is strong.
The brand is strong.
Real strong.
Shout out to the Hive right now. But
lots of
but at the same time, that audience, like, they play games, but like there is a difference between the way that they play games and the way that we cover games right now. And I'm not saying that there's not potential for crossover. We'll do that. That is on the long-term plan. In the same way that like we want to be on HBO. We want to be doing segments on Vice News. We want to be doing segments on Vice News Tonight. Like, we'll get that stuff. But for us, when we had to shoot our shot, what we ended up doing is shooting it in a different way, which was to work with Disney XD, which is where Waypoint Presents just debuted last night. I think we kind of joked about it briefly earlier, but like, I was on TV last night, which was wild.
So dope.
Still hasn't settled on it. We're on Disney XD now every week for the next 8 weeks, and then hopefully some more after that, with a show called Waypoint Presents, which is like 30 minutes of documentary every week about games. Yep. The first one was kind of a making of Hyper Light Drifter and Super Hypercube. I swear we did not intentionally pick 2 games with Hyper in the title. I'll give you a little preview. Next week's is all about 2 League of Legends, a huge League of Legends rivalry, Afro Move versus Double Lift. And it's like a really dope doc that is like incredible. The access that Vice was able to get behind the scenes there was really good. And we have 2 more that we also pulled from like the archives of just Vice coming up, that are just like Vice has covered games for years, even if it's not just video games. So that's my tease on the next 2. And then we got 4 all new things from stuff that we shot this year. We have a crew out in Santa Cruz right now shooting something. We had a crew down in San Diego shooting stuff like 3 days ago. We were at Evo. We shot a ton of stuff at Evo. And the footage I've seen looks incredible. Yes. Like, we picked there was a thing that was like, I don't know if we should follow this person. It was good that we followed that person. It's very good. So get ready for that, because it's dope. And it's been cool because that's an audience that's young. Like, that's the Disney XD audience for their daytime stuff is obviously like 11 to 15, right? And then their nighttime stuff is maybe a little bit wider, 11 to 21 or something. But like, because they're trying to make this Adult Swim play with their games, their kind of games block called Disney XP right now. And I'm really happy to hit that young audience. Like, we again, next week's episode is about an Asian American esports player and a black esports player.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I wish anything to do with gaming was on TV with me with black folks on it when I was a kid, outside of Nick Arcade. Shout out to Nick Arcade real quick. Phil Moore holding it down. But that was it, right? Yeah. So like being able to show people that, we have a story coming up soon about a person with a disability and who is really interested in improving the world for people with disabilities. We have a story about someone who's autistic, and like those are stories that are, I believe, deeply human and are motivated by letting in order to let a young audience see that the world is both bigger than they can imagine and also has room for people like them in it. And like that's the audience that I want to hit right now, because those are the people who are going to hopefully not become Nazis, right?
Right.
Like that's the hope, is like I want to hit the people who are 13 or 14 who are disaffected, who are alienated, who are like, man, like I go to school and no one wants to fucking talk to me. Mm-hmm. Like my dad lost his job. My mom is working 2 jobs. Like I don't get to see my family all the time. All I get to do is play like a free-to-play game all day. That's all I get to do. That's my only joy in the world. I like games. I wish there was a way for me to do more with games. I'll put on Disney XD and maybe see someone like themselves and say like, oh shit, like I didn't know I didn't have to just be an angry person. Like I didn't know that like I my only options in the world were to be alone. And like that's my hope. My hope is to hit that audience. So
that is very, very cool. So I'm really curious, as you said, like you're trying to hit like this new audience, do you see that actually affecting the work that you do at Waypoint, which is obviously targeted toward a more more mature
audience? A little bit. Like it's tough because we want there to be a mature conversation in gaming generally, and a mature conversation does not look like being preached at. Like I've made that mistake when I was younger and writing it, like when I was in my mid-20s or whatever, and I was like up on the pulpit, right? Like I'm gonna preach to these kids about blah blah blah. I'm gonna tell people who are terrible that they're terrible and that they that if they don't get better, then I'm done with them or whatever. And like I still do that every now and then. But a real mature conversation also has rooms for like jokes about sex in it. It also has rooms for some light referential comedy. It also has room for improv comedy that kind of sprawls and gets abstract and weird. It has room for goofy PlayerUnknown's Battleground streams. Like it needs to have room for that, because what I want to do is like start a PlayerUnknown's Battleground stream and then drop some knowledge about the mooch on you, and then we go shoot some people. You know what I mean? Like that's
giving the medicine with the sugar in it.
Right, or be able to pivot from that, because you get people in by being like, yes, we are not just here to preach to you. We're here to, like, we give a fuck about this culture. Like, we're in this culture. So when we're going to sit down and talk to you about, like, our problems with sexual harassment in this culture, it's because we're in it. It's not because we are, like, outside crusaders, like, literally crusaders coming in to tell you that your space is fucked. Like, we are here, too, and want it to be better. So that's kind of, my hope is still to keep the online stuff probably a little more mature, probably a little more, like, it's editorial, right? So it's like, let me tell you a secret that I know from running a website. Like young kids don't read lots of words. Very Snapchat focused, very 30-second video focused. Yep. So we have to figure out how to hit that audience while also hitting the like 38-year-old who's like, oh, it's Sunday. What can I read for 2 hours that's going to make me feel enlightened and more educated about the world? You got to hit both audiences,
Yeah.
Right.
Well, so speaking of hitting all of those audiences, I just want to give. I'm all about plugging. Always be plugging, right?
Please plug.
So Waypoint Presents is on Disney XD.
Yes.
So check your local cable provider or satellite provider for Disney XD, or you can find it on the Disney XD app. So it is all there right there.
And it's coming to the web in 2 months. Every 2 months after every episode, it'll come live on youtube.com/Waypoint Vice.
Oh, wow. Nice. Okay.
So like, if you don't have it, if you like, a lot of people don't have cable. I get it. Like, I don't have cable either. I had to use my mom's like cable login to watch that show last night online on their website. I absolutely did.
Oh, that's so great.
I'm not out here trying to give Time Warner money just to see my face on TV.
That is great.
But so also, so we were also talking while I was plugging. I want to also talk about Nazis, but I also want to talk about video games. And the obvious thing to do if we're going to talk Nazis and video games would be to talk about the wonderful Wolfenstein series and how that's coming back. But I'm not here to talk about that. I'm not here to talk about Wolfenstein. I'm here to talk about Far Cry 5.
Oh, word. Okay.
Yeah.
Good pivot.
So like when I was watching all of the fallout from the weekend and reading all of the things that both allies and adversaries had to say, that when I thought about video games, it reminded me of Far Cry 5 and the outrage, the faux outrage that came out of Far Cry 5, and it like when I thought about it, I was like, "Fuck, when was that?" Yeah, it was May, and it feels like forever ago.
It feels like forever ago.
Seriously, right?
It feels like forever ago. But so here we go. We've got this game. How much of this game, like Ubisoft, they struck gold with this idea because it couldn't be more relevant. Like how, but so how much of this game is like an allegory for life? I don't know how much footage you were able to see at E3.
I saw a lot. Well, so I got to see them do a pitch for this game at pre-E3, which was this very intense.
At Judges Week?
At Judges Week, right. And so it was like very intense. In fact, the dude who did it reminded me a lot of Shane Smith, who's like the Vice head honcho, beard, very intense white dude with like, close hair, who's like he cares about the world and he's seen the world. And I'm not saying that to be cynical or to be like judgment, like my boss's who I'm comparing this guy to, right? So, but so from the jump, I'd seen a lot of footage there, and then I got to do hands-on at the Sony event actually, and then I think at a Ubisoft event also I played a little bit more. I'm curious what you think.
Well, like I said at the reveal, it probably wasn't popular then. It's probably less popular now. You get to kill a lot of white people. I'm here for that. So
I think you're going to kill black people too. This is like, I'm so torn right now because the thing that I know that they're going to do is say like, oh, but in this cult, in this one American militia, they've decided there's no racism is bad, actually.
Right, this ultra Christian militia, right-wing militia. There's plenty of black folks. Well, so the thing is, I've almost become numb to killing black folks in video games, right? Like, there is no black on black crime. It's a myth. Especially in video games. Yeah, because and in the Far Cry series, like all you do is kill brown people. That's all you do is you're
forever. It's all you've ever done.
Right. You're a white person, you go someplace where you don't, you're just going to visit and you're going on safari and your big game is man. Man is the ultimate game and they're always brown.
It's always been the thing for me and Far Cry is. So like Far Cry 2 is probably one of my favorite games of all time. And also I think that it drops the ball on a bunch of shit. Like it is a game about civil war where the conflict doesn't have any stakes. There's never any like explanation for what either of those sides believes. There are no civilians in that game except for the ones who are safe. Like there's never a civilian in danger. Its presentation of like this homogenized like country in Africa, the unnamed African country, is like this mix of that's actually what the fandom calls it, by the way. It's the UAC, unnamed African country.
Oh, that's so great. That's so great.
It's just like, it's the Sahara, but it's also like, the deep jungle. It's like this ridiculous complete amalgamation of a bunch of different
is Zakunda.
Yeah, exactly. And so like all the way back to there, but at least there I didn't have to play a white dude because you could be like one of 12 characters. You could be like the Haitian dude, you could be the Arabic dude, you could be the Israeli Defense Force mercenary dude. Like, you didn't have to. In fact, there was no white dude from America you could play as. The only American you could play as was a Native American dude who was a mercenary. But after that, it really turned into I want to go somewhere on vacation And the thing that was wild to me about it always was that game was always really good at making you feel embodied in a way that other first-person shooters aren't, right? Like Call of Duty, you get shot and there's some red raspberry jam on your screen for a little bit.
Right.
Far Cry, you get shot and you're like, all right, give me those pliers. Let's go. I gotta pull it out. And like climbing animations and like driving and you crash and your body goes flying forward. It's always been like you're deeply physically embodied in this vacation spot, and also you get to shoot black and brown people. And so like that's always been a problem for me. And the thing that bugged me out about the response to Far Cry 5 was responses that were like, I don't know why they have to make it political. And like, my dude, like, it has always been super political. It's always been, whenever it's been good in spite of its shitty politics.
Right.
Like and so I actually ended up getting into like a little bit of a Twitter spat with Brian Crescente on this, because he'd written a piece on Polygon where he basically said this, where it's like, the past games never used to sell themselves on politics. It's like, yeah, but like selling yourself on you get to go bring peace and order to the chaos of Africa is selling itself on politics, man. Like that is a political fantasy for people. Like,
it is. It is. Not to cut you off, but it is the same way that Black Lives Matter is short for Black Lives Matter. Also, when someone says, I don't like the fact that this game is getting political, that means I don't like the fact that the game has gotten political for me.
Yes, exactly. Yes. I used to be able to not have to think about anything like this. It used to just be, I mean, like, I literally think that the Crescente phrase was, it's literally Far Cry 5, I'm sure will be, I'm not going to do a voice. That's not.
No Crescente
Far Cry 5, I'm sure will be just as fun to play as its predecessors, which dropped people armed to the virtual teeth in lush shooting galleries set in the Tibetan mountains, African plains, and tropical islands. But with those games, Ubisoft didn't need to cloak its gameplay with the emotional turmoil of American extremism and modern-day politics. The games were simply interesting diversions that gave players the ability to ignore or embrace their stories. No, dog, I actually super couldn't ignore the story of shitty Jason Brody or whatever his name was in Far Cry 3 going to save all the poor brown people who worshipped a weird ink god, like a blackface ink god in Far Cry 3. And who couldn't save themselves. Like, I'm sorry, I did not have the ability to ignore that shit. Like,
I wonder what the Venn diagram is. I wonder what the Venn diagram is of folks who are in our gaming spaces, who are in the front lines with their own versions of tiki torches. It's probably like it's probably like Wiimotes.
So that was like one of the wild
like lights on the bottom of them.
Like, I'm not going to put specific people on blast. Like, it's not what I'm here to do right now. And also, it wasn't
messy,
like
son. Get messy.
No, don't.
Which was the pre-event for the E3 Judges Week event for that was, like I said, like real hard pitch, real intense.
Yeah.
Real, like, you can't. There's stuff that I'm going to write down that I'm going to tell you that you can never report to anybody because it puts people's lives in danger. And I'm like, all right. Yeah, okay, I'll sign this. Tell me about your game. Like, what do you got? AR-15? Like, what's the? Oh, you're in America? Cool. But it was for me. It ended up being a pretty compelling pitch. I'm happy that they're coming to America. They showed us the trailers that they eventually released that were around the citizens of that fictional place and how they wanted to push the cult out. They did a long talk around the sort of like where the origins of these sorts of cults and these sorts of not mercenary groups, these sorts of militias come from. They were like very engaged in the politics of this, and were like, again, maybe they did a sell that was a little too hard. But I left it, and I was talking to a couple of other people there who were like, yeah, man, like this is getting us thinking about stuff. At the very least, like who knows if they deliver? But it was like me and Jeff Gerstmann, Miguel, who was at Glixel for a while. Shout out to Miguel.
Shout out to Miguel. He's dope.
Yo, for real. Shout out to Miguel.
I love Miguel. Miguel's good stuff.
I hope Miguel is good. Someone better be paying Miguel right now. And we were saying, like, like that could do something. And then the next day on the E3 judges bus, there were a bunch of people who were like, I think it goes too far. And it's like,
even in this era of life,
like this, and the same people. This is where it gets tricky. Is they're not the tiki torch people. This is the thing.
Right.
These are the same people who. That was the week that. This was the week that I want to say the week that Comey got fired.
Right.
And so they were like, I can't believe Trump fired Comey. Like, this whole country is going to hell. Anyway, we shouldn't have to be in America in Far Cry 5. It's too close to home. And like, No, like it is not too close to home. We need more shit at home.
Yes.
That's the weird thing, though. I still don't understand that disconnect, and I feel like as we sit in these 4 panels on Twitch, and it's like our people have been the canaries in the coal mine forever in this country. We have been the people who have seen it all, have dealt with it all, and have figured out ways to manage all those things here. I don't understand the idea of it's too much to talk about. Yep. I don't understand the idea of we can't hit this particular concept or this particular idea or have this conversation when it does actually just play itself out without you. It's like it's going to happen without you. So why not have the discussion and have it in a real way? Do you feel like do you feel like gaming communities have gotten even a little bit better in this respect? Because I see it here on Twitch. I see it here on Twitch where people are like, we kind of want to start to have some of this conversation, but also if you jump into most streamers' rooms, one of their rules is no politics when you jump into the room. So it's like I don't know if I think in our circles game we're having this conversation right now. Right. 8 years ago we would not be having this conversation, or if we were, it would be private. Right. It would not be on Twitch with hundreds of people watching. Right. Like it wouldn't be. So like yes, the gaming audience is getting better at this, or they were always kind of good at this. They just didn't do it in the gaming space. Like I want to believe that there were people who were always politically active who played games. And now they're just actually letting those two things blend a little bit. And I want to also say, like, I don't think Far Cry 5 gets made 5 years ago. I don't think, and again, who knows? That game could be terrible, like, at the end of the day. It might drop the ball completely. But I'm excited to see them try this over another game where, like, I played Ghost Recon Wildlands last year, man. God. Like, what a racist, shitty game that was. Oh, my God.
Like, I don't care how good it feels to like sync up shots and then kill people when the entire thing is a caricature of a country that is not even involved in the shitty racist stereotype that you're even trying to push. Like, it's unbelievable. But, like, I just don't think we get Far Cry 5 years ago. I don't think we get Uncharted 4, whatever the new one is. Or Uncharted Lost Legacy. Yeah. 5 years ago. And I don't think that those things equal, like, oh, we made it. Right. Oh man, there's a black woman voiced by a white woman in an Uncharted game who has her own game. We're at the apex. We made it. Oh my God! Yo, pack it in. I'm about to go get a white sheet because I think we got too far. I got to get dressed up and go out there. We took too much.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but it is progress. It is an indicator that the conversation has moved when the people who sign checks do want to sign those checks now. You know.
Right. Yeah,
Mafia 3, shout out to Mafia 3, shout out to Mafia 3, Mafia 3.
Yeah, Mafia 3.
Yeah, Mafia 3, like, they really went in on that. And my worry is with all this Far Cry talk is I don't know if Ubi is going to go in like that on Far Cry.
I don't feel like they are.
Now, like, not like that, no.
Now, like, I didn't see the pitch, right? Like, so I only know what I played at E3, which was basically like every other Far Cry take a base, kind of thing. So they didn't really get into any of the sort of, dialogue and reasoning and that stuff, which you don't expect to see in a demo anyway. Yeah. And me, like to be honest, my expectations are fairly low. Mm-hmm. I think it's literally going to be, as enjoyable as any other Far Cry game in terms of the gunplay, and you'll get to like probably skin some animals and do all that kind of stuff. But I don't know if I have to disagree with you a bit, Austin. I do think we would get this game 5 years ago, and I think it would be just surface level, not quite redneck rampage type stuff, but like it would be like not really diving into the issues of the day.
I think 10 years ago or 15 years ago, we would have gotten the redneck rampage game. We got that, right? The thing I don't think we would have gotten 5 years ago was a game that ever even said the words like economic crisis, that ever said the words like what's the word I'm looking for, like what are the militias called that took over that
in Portland?
In Portland. There's a specific name for
who were they, Ka?
I was hiding under my desk. What the fuck you asking me for? Right?
Yeah.
I was hiding and shit. I was going home on the bus. I was like, I'm not fucking with any of y'all. I don't remember the name.
Bundy guys.
The Bundy style militias, who are all about like land ownership, anti-government shit like that.
Oh,
like,
yes,
I
yes,
actually
yes,
don't
yes.
think we would have even gotten that stuff 5 years ago. What I think we would have gotten was another game set in a place that we might have gotten something in like a fictionalized America, right? In a world that's like somewhere in the world or something. But like I do think even setting it in America and saying this is a small town that's been beset by economic crisis. This is a town in which there is a group of it is a group of a white family, a rich white family who is preying on the economic crisis to recruit people because they're feeling desperate. I think those things are not there. Again, they're not. I'm not waving a flag over here, but I do think that that's a step forward from Far Cry 3, even from Far Cry 4, which I think took a couple of steps forward. At least we wouldn't get it from Ubisoft. Maybe that's the way to actually say it, right?
Okay.
You might be right, Reef, which is like you might have gotten it 5 years ago from like someone else who really wanted to push it. Like I don't know, David Cage is the dude, but someone who had the freedom to do whatever they wanted to do might have been able to do that 5 years ago.
Sure. What's interesting now that you're talking about that, especially talking about Ubisoft, is if you guys remember about 5 years ago, there was the Rainbow Six Patriots technical demo.
Yes.
That came out and was very David Cagey.
Yes.
That they right, that they drew a lot of inspiration from Jason. What was the name of that game? Jason.
Heavy Rain.
Heavy Rain.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what you remember from it is the glitch.
Is the Jason part? Damn.
But the story behind the Rainbow Six Patriots that was that wound up crashing and burning was this paramilitary I don't know, Blackwater-esque group that infiltrated the United States and felt like the United States was being co-opted by these corporations, and they were going to take it back. And basically the story was, as the Rainbow Six team, you were going to be fighting guys that look very, very similar to the people that you are sworn to protect.
Exactly.
Right. And I was really, I'm a huge Rainbow Six fan, Tom Clancy fan. So I was excited for it just because of that. But that story really, really was something that I was looking forward to, diving deep into.
And they went from that to Rainbow Six Siege, which has which attempts to have no politics. It has a politics.
It totally does.
It has no. There's no storyline. There's no campaign. They're not diving into deep themes. It's just like, what if we could shave away tactical action and multiplayer combat and just give you that without having to even touch.
That's right.
Why?
Right.
I think Vinny Caravella, I did a quick look at this back when I was at Giant Bomb, and he kept being like, why are you guys in the suburbs in America? I'm like, it doesn't come up. Like, why are you fighting who are these other people? What are the terrorists? Why are the terrorists planting bombs in this unfinished home in the suburbs of Illinois? I'm like, I don't know. We don't get into it,
Right.
So I think that's a really interesting comparison.
So here's my double question for you, Austin, because I feel like we touched on a couple of things we got to go back to real quick. One, do you think Detroit is going to hit the mark in any form, form, or fashion? And here's the reason I ask you. Here's the reason I ask you that, and it's only because I like David Cage games are my version of what's the actual show? Grey's Anatomy. It's David Cage games are my guilty pleasure. I can't front. They're not great, and I want David Cage on the show. I want David Cage on the show because I want to talk about that stuff.
Force, man. I was ready to go. I was out there being like, no, the twist makes perfect sense. You just have to look closer. If you look at the scene with the clocks, he leaves early, and that's how he wound up at the other place in time. It totally adds up. I was that dude on Twitter at the time.
I was kind of that dude on the NeoGAF forums. I can't front. I was. But yeah, I was with you. But so here's the reason I ask you that question. So we all know that Jesse Williams is like fully into the activist spheres. And the thing that when everyone's like, yo, Detroit's going to be garbage, Detroit's going to be whack, it's going to be whack, I was like, I can't imagine Jesse Williams with as pro-black, as pro everything that we know him to be attached to this project, and him not have read the script and been like, okay, I'm gonna rock
it's
with
video
that.
games. Video game voice actors don't get to read the scripts. They don't get to. And Jesse didn't blow up like that yet. He did all his shit before he did like the NAACP or the BET Awards speech.
Right.
He did all of his lines and shit before that.
I didn't
know
while
obviously
that.
He cared about this shit for a long time. Like I'm not saying he has not cared about like Black Lives Matter and about activism and for real he absolutely has.
Right.
But he wasn't on the national spotlight for it. You know what I mean? So there wasn't that extra pressure.
I didn't have that perspective. I did not know that. That changes a lot of it for me.
That's like, David Cage told me that at E3. I was doing an interview. He was like, "Oh well, Jesse." Again, I'm not going to do a voice. He was like, "Jesse already did this. Jesse already, did all his lines by the time he did that. We weren't inspired. We didn't go out and get him for that, which would have also been a signal, right? If they were like,
yes,
well, we wanted to do a story about oppression, and so we saw Jesse do this. We knew he was a pretty good actor. We didn't know he cared about stuff in this way.
Right.
Like, all right, I'm here. But I mean, I asked David, like, is this going to be a situation where where the android-human divide is supposed to be an analogy for, like, race and for gender and for, class?
That's
or
an interesting thought.
Right, or is it going to be also all of those other things are there because it's Detroit? Like, Detroit has a history. Right. And he assured me that it was not like a one-to-one thing and that race and class and gender are all still in the game in important thematic ways. We'll see.
So you mean instead of Jason, it'll be racism?
Exactly.
You get to hit X for racism.
Guys,
so
all I gotta say is that they started the trailer with a spiritual. Okay,
that's true. They absolutely did.
That was really good face capture on that. I can't front. That was UE4. If you didn't understand,
I'm gonna play that game.
I'm playing it. I gotta play. I have to see what happens to see how badly or not badly they did with it.
There was a meter on the screen that had like, is it a violent protest or a non-violent protest? And that was before this weekend where like mad people's eyes were opened up to the notion that maybe there's time to like push back on Nazis, right?
Right.
And so there's like it's I think it's going to be really interesting to see when that game comes out what the political vibe is.
Yeah.
Because it could come across as like just a game out of time. But if that game had come out in the Obama presidency, in the middle of the Obama presidency, it might have felt really timely.
Yep.
It might have felt really aware.
Yep.
But like the Trump factor, man, the Trump factor fucks it all up.
So here's the second question to bookend that. If you had your druthers, knowing all the multitudes of parts of conversation that you and all of us have, if you could put the director, game producer together with the idea and the thought that surrounded conversations that we are talking about tonight, what would that conversation, what would it be kind of hinged upon? What would be the story that you'd want to tell, and who would be the person that you'd want to tell that story?
That's a good question. I think the problem is we do not have a lot of big name like black creators in this space at this point. And that means that we don't have a lot of people who have experience with big budgets, right? Like I could come out and be, oh yeah, Sean Alexander Allen. Like I'd like Sean a lot, but also like Treachery and Beatdown City is kind of doing this already to some degree, right? It's having that conversation. Right. So those games do exist in that space. But it's hard to be like, oh, this is a person who could do what we're talking about, but also they've been able to use a budget like David Cage has been doing. I'm trying to think if there's anybody. Do you have somebody in mind?
Charles Webb.
Charles Webb would be great. Like I would love to see what Charles Webb does. But even Charles Webb is in a situation where like, who would let him have that access? I want him to.
Yes.
Like,
that's a totally other show of like that part.
I would want Webb to do it, and I would want him to do what I want from Charles Webb is a superhero game. I want Charles Webb to do the Milestone comics game where he's like bringing us to the like he does that black superhero world and is like able to do that story through that where he has both his because the thing that's great about Mafia 3 and the thing that like if you know Charles, the thing that's great about him is that his history is in comics, it's in like nerd culture, and in Mafia 3 it comes through. I mean, there's a big writing team or whatever, but the things that were great about that for me partially was not only was it a good story about race and a good dive into the ways in which race and culture hit each other in the 1960s, but it also was just like a banging like revenge story with kick down the door, cock that shotgun, like turn on the radio. Creedence Clearwater Revival is playing. You know what I mean? Like
God,
it is like ready to go, big spectacle. and I'd like to see that brought to like a superhero story, because it's been a little while since we had like a really good superhero game. Like I guess the Infamous games. I'm not a big Infamous stan, but like I think those games are all right. What else is a good superhero?
Unless
game?
you count Injustice, I guess.
Yeah, right, exactly.
That's a fighting game.
But I want like
the Spider-Man Insomniac.
Saints Row 4 and beyond.
Saints
Those
Row
are
4.
Those are superhero. I mean, the beginning of Saints Row 4 is fucking amazing.
Yeah,
it's fucking amazing.
They killed that.
Like, you are a superhero, even before you have your powers. And then by the end of that fucking game, they just turned the debug mode on.
So like, do y'all talk to chat? Do you do this on Twitch now over here on twitch.com/Spawn-On-Me? Someone says, I would like to see the reverse, something like Irredeemable. Irredeemable is a really interesting comic from, I guess it was like late 2008, 2009, somewhere in there. In which it was like one of a series of comics that had come out. I think it was a Mark Waid joint. Very like deconstructive of the superhero again. I liked Irredeemable, but like what I want from marginalized creators is something a little more utopian, or a little more not optimistic, but like aware of the struggle, imagining a world that goes beyond the struggle, because that second part is really hard. It's really I know how to fix my mind to think about the struggle. I know how to talk to you about what we go through. I know how to talk about redlining. I know how to talk about racist violence. I know how to talk about bank loans that you don't get. I know how to talk about respectability politics. It is way harder to talk about what a better world actually might look like. To talk about like, if we did grab the reins, if we did have black superheroes in the world, if we did have, a better, like, I joked years ago that the version of BioShock Infinite I wanted was, what if instead of like shitty late 19th century American white supremacists go off into space, antebellum, right? Exactly, like just post-war. What if instead what we got was like Jazz Age, like Harlem Renaissance era, like Fear of a Black Columbia is what I mean, and that's what I want, and that would be an amazing. Like I want to see that version of blackness in, and part of why I'm kind of excited about Black Panther as a film is like, like I'm trying to hold out. I'm trying not to get too hopeful for it because it looks exactly that.
Yeah, I'm hopeful.
Right. Exactly.
I'm very hopeful. I saw this one tweet where like they were saying that they heard that the rough edit was 4 hours long for Black Panther.
All right,
and they were basically like, "Yo, just release it. We'll all have like a big cookout at the movie theater."
I was gonna say, let's have a cookout.
Yeah.
Put up a sheet, just put it on there.
Yes. Right. So in terms of comics, I really think one thing that would be a very, very good comic adaptation that I think has enough juice in it to separate it from sort of, I guess Arkham and stuff would be the last sort of really big sort of like superhero. I really love the current run of Miss Marvel.
Yes.
And I think the great thing about that is not only does it have like, action, and you have things like growing big and growing small, but it deals with her, as a Muslim girl in Jersey. It deals with family. It like deals with like trying to get friends. Like it deals like with like teaming up with like other superheroes. I won't kind of spoil that if you want to read it, but like I feel like that there's so many different game mechanics that you can put, so it's not just like a beat 'em up. Like you could have, So I think that would be dope.
I'm like, maybe that's the thing we should be looking forward to, is like the blending of genres that allow for that. Like Pyre was a game that came out this year that I really like. I haven't beaten it yet. I really want to put more time into it. But the thing that it does is goes between this like fantasy sports game and just straight up visual novel where you're like reading text and reading about lore and you're having conversations with people. I want to see that same sort of blend in something like this, where like I want the Gone Home or the Telltale style story driven game that then pivots into open world Arkham City or Spider-Man 2 or something like that, where it's like, no, we really care about the story of this. Like, you go home and you do stuff with your family. You hang out with your family. Like we it's not just a cutscene that's on for 30 seconds. Like that is a key part of who this character is. And in the comics, that is totally true, right? Like Kamala is there with family. Like it's always been in all superhero stories. It's been a major part of that stuff. So that would be really good. I want to see those blends. I want to blend that stuff together in that way. That'd be dope.
Huh. So I want to talk about a couple of things. Well, so the first is when I met you for the first time in the flesh was at E3 2016.
That's true.
I found out right before, or I guess right after you said yes.
That's true.
You were going to be. So I think I was one of the first people to find.
I'd said yes already, but I hadn't known if we were dropping the news at that point. I found out that I was about to drop the news like 2 days later about leaving Giant Bomb to go to Vice and start something.
That's right. That's right. Yes, I got Friend D8. I felt very I felt very privileged. So now we're hitting basically just 1 year plus your 13-month anniversary, the paper anniversary of you being the of Waypoint. What has the job done for you? What do you feel like you've brought to gaming in a way that you weren't able to before? And what are the things that you're looking to try and do and create going forward?
I think the first one is definitely what it brought to me is like I didn't know I'd be good at this. Like I thought I'd be all right. I didn't know that there was a time early on. So we released a bunch of documentaries on the internet last year, and someone was like, "Oh, I really want you to come down and look at the edit of this podcast or the edit of this video, or I'll send you a cut of it. Basically, I'll send you a cut of this 12-minute documentary." And it was like not in good final shape. Like that happens. That's part of production. The same way that if you're writing something, you need to do a first draft, a second draft, a third draft, blah blah blah. In video production, in documentary production, especially, like you have to send notes and you have to recut stuff and you have to edit stuff down. And when it first showed up on my inbox, I was like, oh, all right, here we go. Like, I don't really like to do this. Right. And then I sent notes, and they were decent notes. And I sat down in the edit booth with an editor and like helped them figure out how to do that. And then I was in a budget meeting and like, okay, what am I going to do in this budget meeting? Okay, all right, I guess I know how number 1 + 1 is 2. Okay, right. I got this. And then like what you end up noticing is like, oh, actually, like I do know more about this space than anybody else in this room. Oh, I did have an insight, a surprise. Like I did have an insight about how we could save tens of thousands of dollars on this by doing it this way instead of this way or whatever. And figuring out I could do this job was this huge confidence booster for me. Nice. And I wouldn't have done like when they reached out to me to be like, hey, do you want to do this job? Are you interested in this job? You want to talk to us about it? My initial response was like to myself was like, I don't think I'm there yet. I don't think I can do it. And that is a thing that people have written into us about before and have said, hey, I got a job offer, or like, oh, someone at my school paper wants me to do blank, but I don't think I can be the photo editor. The thing that this taught me was like when someone comes to you and says, hey, we think you could do this job, like maybe not trust them all the way, but like trust that they don't insult them, right? When they say that they think you can do a thing, or they say I want to interview you for a thing, it's not because you got lucky. They didn't pull your name out the hat. They saw your work, they looked at your resume, they said, hey, it's at least worth sitting down and talking to you. And then showing up and actually being able to do that stuff was this huge confidence booster for me. I felt like my presence made things better. And that is a hard thing to have to learn late, but like I'm glad I learned it. In terms of what I think I brought to Vice is like, I'm glad to be in that room when we are talking about larger editorial strategy. My good friend Eric over at Noisy, we were in an EIC meeting once. We had like a retreat at like some hotel where we were like, just, all right, we're going to spend 12 hours just talking about editorial policy and like what our goals are as a larger organization and like where our teams are going. And at the end of it, we all had to pitch what our sites were. And Eric stood up and he's the EIC at Noisy, which is a really good music site. You should watch the Noisy shows if you haven't watched the Noisy shows. Also, Noisy Atlanta 2 is like my absolute favorite thing because it goes from like it goes from like being with 21 Savage to going to like Lil Yachty with his mom, and it's the cutest, best thing, and that switch is just wild. But he got up and was like, I think Noisy is the Bart Simpson of music sites. Like, we're young. Even when we're not talking about punk music, we are being like, we have a punk identity. We are trying to shake things up. We're trying to kind of pranksters. And I was like, okay, like, I'm with him on that. Like, we need that. Like, not to diss Pitchfork or any of the other great sites out there that write about music. But it's cool to have someone who's a bit of a troublemaker. But then I got up and I realized, like, I had like a whole thing in my head, like, how do I pitch Waypoint to people who don't know anything about games? And I was like, oh, we're the Lisa Simpson of games journalism. Like, we're also alternative, right? We are also not the norm, but we're a little jazzier than we are punk, right? We're a little more interested in like knowing the facts and like being able to quote some philosopher or connect some big picture ideas. We do get fired up, but when we do, it's not just because like someone pushed us over at lunch. It's because when they pushed us over at lunch, it reflected a larger ideological injustice, right? You know what I mean? Like, and so that was for us like this moment where I got to conceive in my head, like, okay, that's what I want to be. And I wanted to bring that to some degree also to Vice in general. Like, it's not softer. Like, it's not like it's like a quieter or more like reserved. It's just, it's loud in a different way. It's loud in a way that wants to make sure that things have their context, and that like we want to make sure that when we double down and go at something, we know that we're ready to do it, not because it's good to do it, but because we can do it right. And so that's definitely been like a big thing for me. Like, the thing that I want to be able to bring to Vice is like, I'm here in this room, and so I'm gonna speak up when someone says some shit that's kind of misogynistic, right? Which isn't a judgment. I'll be like, people fuck up all the time, right? Yes. Or when someone says like, hey, this is a policy we want to try to do. I was definitely in a meeting one time when someone basically said like, hey, what if we ran a column? It was right after the Trump thing. And there was a person who was just spitballing, right? We're just trying to figure out ideas. Like, what do we do next? How do we respond to Trump's America? And someone said, like, well, are we too in our bubbles? Should we start running, counter arguments to the sort of editorials we normally run? Like, we normally run editorials like that are like about global warming. What if we ran something from someone who didn't believe in global warming? And I was like, no, right. Like, and I need to, like, someone else would have said that if I didn't say it, I promise. It would not have gotten to print. But it was a moment where I got to like feel like, oh no, like I'm saying no to this. I get where you're coming from. I get the reaction. I get the fear that maybe we're only talking to the same people. We want to talk to a wider audience or whatever. But like being able to be part of those conversations is good. Like, that's one big thing. And then the other thing in terms of like what Waypoint brings to Vice is a lot more practical. Like, games journalism is ahead of the curve in a lot of big ways. It has been for a while. We were, think about what 1UP was doing with video. Think about what Up and GameSpot were doing with podcasts a decade ago, 15 years ago. Like, I think about the 1UP show every fucking day.
Me too.
I think, like, Me too. Like, unbelievable. Like, no one was doing anything like it. No one they shuttered because no one knew how to pay them for it. No one had, there were not the structures around advertising buys for it at all, and now it's the only place to get advertising money is in video right now. It sucks, like, and I like doing video, but so in that way, Waypoint is also positioned in a way to experiment, to be in a very experimental vertical at Vice. Like, we are the first people here to have forums. We're the first people doing live streams in a consistent, regular way. We're personality driven instead of being content driven. Like, obviously we produce stuff, but like Waypoint is me and Danielle and Rob and Patrick and Danica. Like, that is, and then our freelancers who we do our best to shout out whenever they do something good, right? And like, and we do our best to like have a core of freelancers who we make sure are always up and like around, right? And I want to be able to say Cameron Kunzelman wrote this, and for people who are regularly readers, like, oh yeah, Cameron, he does that column every Friday, blah blah blah. And so we're trying out different models that are things that the larger Vice like ecosystem could pick up, like. Danica's brand of personalized like Twitter stuff is not something Vice used to do. Vice did not do a lot of like, I'm going to respond to a person directly. I'm going to do jokes. Like, they're going to put the headlines up, and they're going to like now and then they'll do a joke or whatever. But Danica's like, yo, I know how to make memes. Like, I'm going to do it. Like, I'm going to. And it's been cool to see the other brand advice going in and saying like, oh, actually, like, that makes sense for us too. Like, we should also be doing funny, weird stuff that connects us to our community. And so that's the other thing that Waypoint brings to Vice is like, we get to be an experimental test bed. We get to try weird stuff out. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. But like, we have the backing to just try it out. And as long as it makes sense, as long as we pitch it in a way that makes sense, you know? Last thing is like, where do we want to go from here is like, keep experimenting, keep trying new stuff, right? Like the last thing I ever want to do is repeat myself. There's another weird Friends at the Table reference, but like there's a character I introduced in our second season, sci-fi season called Counterweight. There's a character named Laser Ted who is just like me doing a riff raff impression. And he's great. I love Laser Ted. Laser Ted's really funny. But the audience for Friends at the Table, not all of them, there's a part of audience Friends at the Table who loves Laser Ted that in a way I could never love Laser Ted because I did I was Laser Ted for a minute. I don't have to be Laser Ted anymore. I get to move on, and my mind is on new stuff always.
Right.
And so there is a point at which if you've done a thing, the last thing you want is to do the old thing again. You want to find that new. You don't want to tell the same joke every day. You want to tell new jokes, right?
Right.
And so that's how I think about Waypoint too. Is like we did the Halo oral history, and I loved doing the Halo oral history this year. It was an incredible piece by a writer who just like spent too much time, like just spent so much time doing the most intense research imaginable, right? And then a ton of editing help, and then kind of artwork. Like it was from the top to bottom this incredible, huge effort. And we'll do another oral history at some point, but like I'm not looking to become Waypoint the oral history website. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
We did a theme week on prison culture a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So
not
good.
looking to become, and I really love doing it, but we're not going to be Waypoint the prison culture website. Do you know what I mean? And so it's one of those things that's like, whatever that next thing is what I want to hit. And whenever I feel like we're going back to the well is when I know we need to like take some time back, breathe deep, go play some stuff, go read stuff that has nothing to do with video games. Right, it has nothing to do with video games, and say, how do we bring this in? How do we touch this new audience? How do we reach out? So I guess like the cheesy, corny version of the answer of what's next is like, I don't know, and that is a good thing. Right? Good for me not to know what the answer is, because that is what's going to make me find an answer that's actually instead of just being another old thing. So yeah.
So before I ask you my question, we had a really cool question from the chat from 12th Gear. He said, did you ever spend any time when you were at Giant Bomb thinking about the premium membership side of things?
Yes.
And how do you kind of feel if it was important to keep the content ad supported and freely accessible?
The answer to that is actually really complicated because media is going to be premium in the future.
Right.
We are not far away from more sites adopting a New York Times model where it's you get 10 articles a month or whatever, or a Giant Bomb model where like, okay, we'll run ads for free, but then there will be content that is locked up, period, to the end. Or that is the kind of funny model, right? Which was, or maybe they've switched off of this now, I'm not sure, but the stuff that Greg and them were doing back like last year was subscribers got it first, right? Subscribers got it a day early, right? Those various models and a bunch of other ones, right? Like I think about like VRV is like the a la carte model where like, okay, you can be a Rooster Teeth subscriber or a Crunchyroll subscriber inside plus another $4 or $5 and I get 12 different things now that I get to subscribe to through the same app. As you can tell, I think about this a lot. There's a bunch of different models around this. We won't know which one is the main one for another 5 or 10 years. There might not even be one main one. There might be 3 or 4 that just are always out there depending on what you're doing. But pure advertising dollars are drying up.
Yep.
Like you keep seeing media organizations, including mine, come out with statements in which they say they're pivoting to video. That's not because they think video is a better platform for information than the written word or than podcasts or than anything else or than long form video.
Right.
Because again and again, what you see is like we're going to make short or medium length videos, meaning 20-second to 8-minute videos, right?
Yep.
What they mean is, or the reason they're doing that is because almost all of the advertising dollars right now are on video platforms. That's pushed via Facebook and Google studies and their kind of pressure on the advertising market. it's pushed by the lack of advertising generally out there. Something like 60 or 70% of every advertising dollar is spent on an ad on a Google platform or on Facebook. The majority of being on Facebook. Wow. Yep. That means that every other media company out there is just like scrapping over 30% of the remaining advertising dollars. So all that's drying up, and video is going to dry up too. It might not dry up this year or next year, but like it is a real thing that the ways in which you can look at what Facebook just put out a report, like a study 3 weeks ago that said the level of engagement with video viewers is much higher than no, that doesn't mean shit. Like it doesn't mean anything. It does what it here like it might mean something. It might mean that the people who watch videos like are looking at their phones, actually looking at their phones. Like sure. It might mean maybe that they might comment more or something. But does it mean that they click a link and then buy a product more? Right. They don't have numbers that show that, right? Like, and until they're showing those numbers, I'm not confident that the ad money is going to be here to stay. I think that ad money is going to slowly disappear, and we're going to move towards more and more Patreons, more and more subscription-based models. It's something I think about a lot. We have lots of really loyal readers, lots of real loyal listeners at Waypoint. I love our fans. Like I love them. And when you go to talk to somebody who sells advertisements for a living, what you think you can do, this is like one of those times when I was like, I went in the room and I didn't know what to do, or I didn't know enough, and I'm glad I asked the right questions, because you're always better to ask that question when you don't know. Yep. Is you go in and I went in and I thought like, okay, well, like our fans are really loyal. They're hanging out in the forums, they're asking us questions, they're reading multiple stories per day. Like, surely that fan means way more than someone who only shows up to the site once because they saw a clickbait headline somewhere. Right. And the answer is like, yes, they matter more. But then it's diminishing returns. Like, if someone is 10 times more loyal than the average reader, that means something. And an advertiser will pay you more money because you have loyal fans who just in general are in a positive mode when they're on your site, and maybe are more likely to be like, oh yeah, like Coca-Cola, that does make me smile, or whatever. But the 100-time more loyal person is no different to an advertiser than a 10 times more loyal person. 1,000 times to like, someone could be like, yo, Austin, I bought you a boat. That's how loyal of a fan I am. Coca-Cola doesn't care about this guy bought me a boat. Shit, like, you want to buy Coca-Cola? Like, that's all I care about. And so that is the thing that is there. It can't just be that sites go to a personality-driven thing where, all of our fans are engaged. Like, it helps, but it doesn't help that much. So I think subscriptions are here to stay, and I think they're going to be like a whole new thing all over the world of media in the near future. Give it another 5 years, so it'll be everywhere. I mean, we're trying to figure it out. We're here on Twitch now. You know, podcasting in audio form is definitely one of those things where ad revenue is very small. The pie is so infinitely small in the audio podcasting space. So, you know, we're here. We're on all these other different kind of platforms, trying to figure it out. And Patreon too. When we get our Patreon back together, we're going to be doing that too. But it's get that Patreon, please. It's coming. It's coming real soon, actually. Before we let you go, because I know it's super late East Coast. One of the things that brings me most infinite joy on this planet, on this green and brown sphere, it
makes him 10 times more loyal.
Makes me, loyalty is in my DNA. Is seeing this emergence of you and Patrick Klepek playing PubG a day.
Just about every day.
Almost every day.
We started taking breaks now that we got our chicken dinner. Now that we got our on-stream live chicken dinner, we're like, all right, we'll just go 3 or 4 times a week.
So players underground. Oh my God, players underground has been
players unknown battleground.
That's what I said. No, I didn't.
You said
no, I didn't. I'm tired.
You created the Harriet Tubman DLC.
Oh shit! Wow. It's coming. Shout out to you on the tippy tie for everyone back at home. That game that you've been playing a lot of. What I want to know, what has been the thing with this game and you and Pat, and it's been really cool to just see you now become a mass murderer in real life, in real time. You just been like smoking fools and like doing a dance after you get your kills. It's been so good. It's been so good.
It is a good video game. It is. Like I think there's something real special about PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. It's a game that I did not think I would like at all. The first time I heard it described, I was like, no, that sounds too hardcore for me. Like I don't have time for something like that. And then actually the thing that I think got me with it was it doesn't take that much time to play a game.
Right.
I can play when I'm bad. I can complete a whole round in 5 minutes. I'll wait outside for a minute. I'll get into a plane. I'll ride that plane for a minute and a half. I'll jump out and take another minute and a half falling. And I got 30 seconds left to run in the house and get shot in the face. Like I'll do it quick. You've seen fucking PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds done quick. But the even a long game is only 40 minutes, and it's a tense 40 minutes. Like at every moment, I feel really engaged. Yeah, and I felt myself getting better. Like, and I know that's for a lot of people. I wrote about that once, and a lot of people are like, "Yeah, that's video games, Austin." I'm like, "Yeah, for you, like, I've never like outside of maybe when I used to really play like Soul Calibur and Tekken back in the day." I never felt like I get better at games. It's like it's weird, but I don't feel that normally when I play a game, especially on a multiplayer game. But with PubG or PubG or Plunkbat, whatever you want to call it, I felt myself get better at that game, not just in terms of like the pure like my shooting mechanics, but in terms of like strategy and understanding where to stand, and like there's a key moment I think where we went from being players who for people who don't know, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, and if you don't know, like that's because you're not following this shit too close, I guess. But PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds sold 5 million copies in the last 4 months. It's a game in which you and 99 other people like are sky dropped down into an island, and you have to kind of find weapons, and then every 3 minutes or so, a wall of energy, a blue wall, kind of contracts around you to get you closer and closer together. It's a lot like Battle Royale, the movie, or like the Hunger Games, or something like that. And the thing that it seems like is like it would be a really hardcore thing where only people who are the best shooter people in the world are going to be good at it. But because there's a lot of room for, like, I guess like tactics, like tradition, like tactical thinking can pay off in that game. You can feel yourself getting better in terms of just positioning even before you're getting headshots. Like I'm still not getting headshots. Right. What I am doing now is being willing to go outside and not just hole up inside. Like the first like 20 episodes, 30 episodes, me and Patrick were just like, all right, we have guns. Let's hide in this bathroom. And hide in the closet. Exactly. Let's just point these guns out this closet. And if anybody comes in, and then they come in and they shoot you because you're in a closet and like you can't go anywhere. So we eventually learned, was just like, no, you have to take that risk of like going outside. A rock is way better cover than a closet. Like, because if someone comes at you from in front of you, you can like, oh shit, I gotta go around the other side of that rock. Like you can do options. And learning that stuff has been really fun. Like, what brings you to it? Like, I know you've been playing it a lot too.
And interestingly enough, this is the first game, because I literally just got a gaming PC in the past 10 months. Like, literally the first time I actually had a gaming PC that I can actually run things besides MAME. So it's been learning how to play with a mouse and keyboard. I was like, I need to find a game where my dexterity is going to get better, and I have to be forced into using mouse and keyboard in a real way. And PUBG has been that for me. And it's also been that same feeling. I get that same exact feeling of like, oh man, last week I couldn't even figure out how to crouch and get out, get into the prone in a reasonable way. And now I'm like, okay, I can like run through a house, pick up stuff, get myself into a position, zero in on someone and actually take a shot. I got my like 6-7 kills at this point, which I feel good. Like those 6-7 kills. Those feel like the best kills.
You're playing Call of Duty, 6 kills. Like, I did bad.
I'm garbage.
Game.
I'm garbage. But like 6-7 kills.
If you get 7 kills over 20 games in Battlegrounds, you feel like, don't fuck with me, man.
Word. You start beating your chest a little bit. You start rolling out with weapons that you don't need. You start, I'm gonna roll out here with this. Exactly it. I'm gonna roll out here with this and I'm putting on auto when you're all the way down the hill. Yeah, I got this. But it's been that feeling of like accomplishment that I haven't had in a really long time, because at this point it's all muscle memory for most of the stuff that I game with. I game on a controller most of the times that I do, and everything is muscle memory. I've been able to do this for a very long time, but having to have that barrier there and learn again has been so fantastic. And it's been that extra little tidbit of seeing people who I've never seen play together before group up and like become murder squads and also death squads and die and like have laughing, joking moments about who can't drive and all this other
stuff.
stuff.
The thing that's wild about it is it swings between high farce, just like ridiculous,
really quick,
like you're doing jumps on it with a car off a hill and everyone's yelling and laughing, or like you left someone behind and you got to run back and grab them before the other squad rolls up on them. And everyone's just like having a good time.
Yep.
And then it gets down to like 25 people left. Everyone's just like, all right, I think they're coming from the west. 225, 230. I see somebody at 230 up on the hill. Who has an 8-time scope? Does anybody have a scope?
Yep.
Are you okay? Who has? I have 2 med kits, 1 energy drink, and 5 bandages. What do you have?
Yep.
You have 3 painkillers. Give me one of those painkillers.
Yep.
No, please give me
Yo,
one
I
of those
need that.
painkillers.
I need that. I need that. I need
Use
that.
your energy drink. No, I'm gonna save the energy drink. Let me use a painkiller.
It hasn't, and
like,
that's been the thing, right? It's been like those small. It's been a game. I was playing with Gary Witta like two nights ago.
Yes, shout out to Gary Witta.
Shout out to Gary Witta. So I was playing with him, and just like there was one moment we were like driving down a road. We were like going to schools. We were going to the school, which is like a place in the map where a lot of, as they call it, spicy areas in the map. This is one in which a lot of folks kind of jump into, and there's a lot of activity there. So we were like driving to there. And we were following another car, and this other car just zooms past us, and we start shooting at this car. And Gary Witta, who is like the nicest person on the planet, turned into a straight psychopath. Like turned into who was like, shoot the tires out, shoot, go for the tires. Like it's like, and that's a bad Gary Witta impression, but it was like, shoot the tires out. I shot him, and like he cackled. When I say cackled, I mean like cackled when he got a kill on a dude in the car, and it was literally one of the best. And we died right after that. We like totally ate it. But it was like literally the best moment of that night.
I mean, did you see that footage of that dude who like was on? It was like a motorcycle, did a jump like across a house, and then got out and like was flying through the air, shot a guy as he fell off a motorcycle.
Yep.
And the thing that's great about that is like, yo, how did he do that? And then he rolled up top to try to get that kill.
Yep.
And he got shot by another guy.
And got murdered.
That's the thing about PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds is I don't care if you're Superman. At least it's 100 people. Someone's got kryptonite.
Yes.
Like, someone has it, and you're gonna get caught by it.
That could have
It's Bubble Goose the game. It is literally Bubble Goose the game.
That's exactly right. Oh man! So I love it. It's real good. I said this earlier on Waypoint Radio a couple days ago, but like I did not anticipate even thinking about another game besides Breath of the Wild as being my game of the year this year, and it's now an actual conversation. Like it's in conversation in my head,
and this is an early access game.
It is right. Yeah, it is. It's supposed to come out this year. We'll see. Right.
Oh God!
You know,
so good, so good.
We gotta play. We all have to play. We
definitely have to get some running. We definitely have to get some running. Next time,
you can play it on the Xbox One X that you can now pre-order.
Please, I think you mean the most powerful console ever in history that I've witnessed, or whatever.
Yes. I affectionately call it the Xbox One Infinite. That should have been the name.
Oh, that's a good name.
Yeah,
Thank you.
No, another person has co-signed it. No,
so much.
Damn it. God damn it.
Get Phil on the line. Where's Phil? Call us.
Yeah, all right. Listen, speaking of E3s, that E3 that I met you was my first E3. I ran into Phil Spencer at the EA press conference, the press of the media briefing. My first media briefing ever. I see Phil, and Phil gave me the, what are you doing in this entrance, boy? Look. Like I have never seen before. Like,
I didn't have that. I didn't have that experience with Phil. Phil was nice to me. I offered Phil my purple shirt.
Hood and had no belt.
I mean, you gotta have a belt, man. Right. What you was sagging by?
They spinning, baby. They spinning,
man.
They spinning, baby.
They spinning. You need Phil Spencer to leave any meeting with you where he's like, man, where to cop that? Like, where? That fit.
Well, last thing before we let you go. So I'm old, right?
Yes.
So I'm in there. I'm actually like 10 days, well, no, not even 7 days away from my 39th birthday.
Oh, Lord, happy birthday in advance.
Thank you, sirs. Thank you. The thing that has been in my brain for the past 2 weeks, we have a really nice intern at our job. He is definitely at least just hitting his 20s. And he rolled up on me and he do the introductions. You know, how you doing? My name is Khalif. You know, happy to have you here. You know, all this cool stuff. He's like, hey, my guy, what up? And I was...
Yeah, because the brand is strong.
The brand is strong.
That is the problem with Jesus and Mero.
That is the problem.
And I'm my guy. What is my guy?
You need to know where my guy is. Come on.
I watch Jesus, and I'm like, my guy.
So my guy comes from. All right. New York is a big place, but it's also kind of a small place. And there are places where black folk and Italians live like this. My guy. And the other second part of this is, like, it turns out black people like The Godfather and The Goodfellas and mafia movies in general, we like them a lot.
A lot.
To the point where I was going to say before, like, this is, like, the funny thing is, a lot of people are like, oh, it's Mero. And, like, Mero does do. It's fantastic, my guy. Right. But, like, but my grandfather, rest in peace, my grandfather, by the time I, like, really knew him, by the time I was, like when I knew him as a kid, he didn't do this. But by the time I was like 16, 17, just a black dude, he was a black dude, no Italian in his blood, as far as I know, was just always in Godfather mode all the time, with like fake Sicilian American accent.
What?
Because I don't know what the history is here. Like I don't think it comes down to. They watched Godfather. My grandfather was a smart dude. He was not just like, I like The Godfather a lot. I'm going to do a bad Marlon Brando impression. I think part of it comes down to something that's in the Godfather films and something that's in the story of Italian Americans is a story of assimilation. Of these are people who used to be outcasts, who used to be oppressed, who used to be put down, and then they managed to become white people. And at the same time, there is still such a thing as Italian culture in America.
Right.
In a way that there is not necessarily a lot of other Western European white subculture in America. There's American culture. But, like, an Italian, especially an Italian from New York, like, it's for real. And also, young Italian in New York, they're saying their own whole fair share of black slang.
Yes.
There was a real cross-pollination between young Italians and young black folk in New York.
Yep.
And so for me, that is like the history of my guy. My guy is definitely, you get that from, like, the mooch is definitely someone who says, my guy, yes. My guy. And I think that's where it comes from. And I think that, like, again, it's like complete pop historiography of just like, I think it might be this kind of like the appeal of the Italian American kind of arc from outsider to part of culture, but still also has their own unique subculture is appealing. And I wonder if that's part of the draw there.
Yeah.
And also it's like, mafia movies are good, Yeah. So you pick things up in the same way that you pick up stuff from any movie. You pick up stuff from any great hero that you admire or whatever.
Oh my god!
But also the undercurrent to all of that is, of course, like terrible racism, right? Like
right.
Spike Lee movies. We've all lived.
And we come back around.
Yeah, I don't know how many Italian people or Italian neighborhoods you've lived around, but there is serious racial tension in those spaces. Yeah. Often around, questions of like, it always comes down to like, what's a real man look like?
Right.
Who gets to date which women, because it's come down as always to some shitty misogynistic shit.
Yep.
Like that stuff is all over the place. One of my favorite pieces of media to come out in the last few years is a short film by this dude named Shaka King. Look it up. It's called Moulignans.
Wow, really? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Which is, of course, Italian slur for black folk. It means eggplant. If you
Yeah.
hear someone call you a mouli, they're calling you an eggplant.
Right.
If you ever see that fantastic, terrible scene in True Romance,
Yep.
where Christopher Walken is playing a gangster, and he's interrogating God, who is it? It's is it Dennis Hopper? I want to say it's Dennis Hopper.
I think so.
Who's playing? I think it's Dennis Hopper. And Dennis Hopper does this whole long thing about how Sicilians have black blood in them because they're from they're from Sicily, which is near North Africa. And he goes into calling him an eggplant and blah blah blah. Like that tension, that racist, shitty tension is there, but there is also that little bit of like collaboration and crossover. Like, I don't know. I want to get to a point where we get rid of the racism, but we still have our slang crossover.
Yeah.
And everybody loves spaghetti, man. Like everybody loves Captain.
I'm saying I know back when I was before I left New York, man, we bastardized some food by making Jamaican patties with pepperoni and cheese in it.
That sounds good though.
No, but it's mad good though. It's super good.
Man.
It's super
All
good.
you need to do is add some avocado to that, man.
Oh, see, you visited here. You visited here.
Okay,
yeah.
right.
Millennials are killing pepperoni. Millennials are killing avocado. They're killing everything. As if you listen to anything online, they have killed everything. I'm surprised we're still here at this point.
We're next, man.
Oh my God!
Listen, it turns out millennials in the KKK. That's what turned out.
Oh
They were trying to kill black people.
Except for that one.
While listening to Kanye.
Yes.
The two best things that have happened in the past 24 hours in terms of racism has been that one viral video of that one young white kid who was getting rolled up on by that black dude. And he took off his shirt. He was like, I'm not part of the KKK anymore. I'm leaving. Bye. That cat and the cat who was in the Vice piece, who was like kind of the main folks, sitting on his camera, crying his ass off when the cops are about to snatch him up. Yep. That tells you a lot about the foundation of all this. Tells you about how people are full of shit and how they really don't have a foundation to stand on. And again, remember that stuff when you see all this stuff that gets pushed out there in the world, because it's really not dope. Austin, thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
Anytime I can find the time, you know it. Like if it was more possible, I would be here more often. Let's not make it another year though. Let's try to do this in at least the winter. Like at least let's do it when it's like snowy day out.
Seriously, fam. Fam, I
Once
love you, man.
Once a season.
Yeah, seriously.
Yes.
Fam, I love you. You have definitely shared many pieces of wisdom with me anytime we get a chance to hang out.
I wish we got a chance more, man. I always love to come to Chicago. You know, like this is second home status.
Absolutely,
Awesome.
absolutely. Oh my God. So again, let everybody know where they can find all your work. Let them know where they can peep all the dopeness that you were doing. You have all the plugs
Let's get them plugs out. Waypoint. You follow me on Twitter at Austin_Walker. You can follow everything we do at Waypoint at waypoint.vice.com. We actually have the Deez and Mero have like 1 billion AKAs. we seriously have probably 30 different Waypoint URLs that people bought for us, which is incredible. Which is like, it's again loyalty. We have both gamesare.art and gamesare.not.art. Both of those redirect
wow,
to Waypoint.
That's
we got new.donk.city.
Yes.
We got PubG tips PubG tips.info for all your hot tips on PubG.
That's so great.
We got sadrobots.club, which I think goes to an article about Nier Automata, obviously.
Yes.
We got thirst.solutions, which is also, I think, an adult club for us. Obviously, waypoint.zone. We got you already know what it.biz.
Oh, which is wow. That's dope.
And we have what's good inner.net.
Yes.
So, any of those will take you to Waypoint. You can also follow Waypoint on Twitter at twitter.com/Waypoint, where our great social editor, Danica Herod, just puts out the best work in terms of social brand stuff on the internet.
She's fantastic.
I went years being like kind of snooty about social brand stuff. Like, I don't want to fuck with like a brand manager. I don't want to fuck with having a social editor. And seeing Danica work has completely turned my head on it because it's work. Because like you see someone do it and you realize like, oh, it takes a lot of work to figure out what connects to an audience.
Yep.
How to not just you can't hit mute on conversations when it's your job, right?
Yep.
And so if we put out a story that's controversial, Danica is the one who literally has to sit and look through all of the responses to that on Twitter and on Facebook, right? Like when the Nazis come through, Danica is the first line of defense, who reads that shit, who moderates it, and who and when there is someone who makes a good point, has to figure out how to bring it up to us in a way that makes it, actually, better, makes us do better in the future. So shout outs to Danica always. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/WaypointVice. Find us on YouTube at youtube.com/WaypointVice. Twitch.tv/Waypoint. And then other plugs. Waypoint presents, like you said, check your local listings on DXD, Disney XD or Disney XP. They're the nighttime game block. Right now it's every Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern. But check local listings on that because who knows. Then there's like repeats and stuff like that. And then Friends at the Table. Friendsattetable.com, or sorry, friendsattetable.net to listen, friendsattetable.cash to support that show. That is an actual play podcast, which is like, if you've heard of like the Adventure Zone, what the McElroy brothers do, it's like that. We get a little more. No, we're not super serious. We get a little serious. We get a little. We bring the tears. You know what I mean? Like we make people get in their feelings bad on our show. But it's still a comedy show too. It's a lot of fun. We just launched a new season on that people can listen to. Sci-fi show, fantasy, like whatever you want. But also kind of like we try to keep it a little woke, to be honest. So like in our fantasy setting, orcs are not just like evil black people. They are like archivists who go through the world and like dig up old stuff from before like the fall of civilization, and they do interesting, like a different type of magic than everybody else in the world. Like we try to keep things like a little bit more, we kind of deconstruct traditional tropes around that stuff. So that's Friends at the Table. So check that out on your podcast listening ears. And also finally, Waypoint Radio, also a podcast you can find. Go on iTunes, go on Google Play, wherever you listen to podcasts, and search for Waypoint Radio, and we will be there. I do more than I thought I did.
Sweet Jesus, you do so many things. You do so many things.
From John X. Man in the chat, averagebomb.com.
Averagebomb.com, of course, averagebomb.com. Shout outs to the Giant Bombs crew, obviously. I'm actually going to be over there tomorrow at their studio, actually to do the 404, which is Jeff Bakalar's show.
Nice. Oh, nice.
So shout out to Jeff. Jeff holds it down. Maybe I'll swing through the studios and see if I can cook up some chaos with the Giant Bomb boys.
That would be real, though.
Listen, Abby's out there now. Shout
out to Abby. Abby's been fantastic.
Shout out to Abby and Ben, who have been just great new team members for that team. But especially Abby, who I think it would be very easy to get in that role as the first woman at Giant Bomb.
Yep.
And not know how to deal with, not because women wouldn't know how to deal with it, but like there's a specific amount of pressure for anybody who gets hired at Giant Bomb. I speak from experience.
Yeah.
And there are people for whom seeing anyone who is different at all will, even if they don't think that they are misogynistic or racist or sexist or whatever, like they will clench up a little bit.
Yep.
And they will be a little more defensive, and they will say, well, why did you miss that jump in that game? Like, do you even really play games?
Right.
What's your back? Oh, you're a comedian. You're not even a gamer or whatever. Right. And so like shout outs to Abby for like holding it down in the face of all of that, and like not dropping any bits of swag at all. Like just goes. So
she's been
very
fantastic.
Impressive. Yes, absolutely. And shout outs to y'all again for having me on. That's my last plug. Like it is essential is what I'm going to say, is like I am frustrated that more people don't listen to your show. It is one of those things that's like when those top lists come out and no one even made the effort. You know what I mean? Top gaming podcast. And it's like, I'm not dissing the other top gaming podcasts. I'm not trying to diss Kind of Funny. I'm not trying to diss Giant Bomb. I'm not trying to diss. I'm not trying to diss Griffin. I'm Cool Games Inc. I don't know what we're gonna do with Cool Games Inc. at this point. But the fact that like I don't see Small on Me on those lists has always bummed the fuck out. So y'all deserve it, and I hope my hope is we come back in a couple months and you all have the Patreon back up, and it'll be. I want to be interviewing you about the shit y'all are doing. So
hey, I want to sit on the. I want to get all of us on the Vice couch and see if we can all roll through. Please come through. That would be incredible.
Word up.
Y'all haven't been anywhere ever together. You said, right?
Not all of us at the same time.
We've never been together.
New York. Find the time to come to New York. If you're ever all in New York, we will host you for sure, 100%.
Oh, that's dope.
Come through.
That would be fucking dope.
And
That would be fantastic.
Pizza will be good. My God.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
my guy.
Yes.
My guy.
Yes.
Pizza,
Yeah.
my
Get some
guy.
Chinese food, my guy.
Oh, my God. Oh,
Yes.
My guy, Ray's Pizza, my guy.
Chinese food. You kidding?
Oh, my
Yes.
God.
Chicken
Oh.
and broccoli. What are we talking about? We're talking about.
Look,
Hey,
yeah.
hey.
Hey.
Oh,
Hey.
that's I didn't finish saying the thing. Shaka King had this thing called Boulignons, which is literally a bunch of black dudes doing their
Italian.
sitting on the stoop Italian impressions, and it just like cuts right through it, and it's like the black sister comes back with like a white boyfriend, and they like throw the cigarette butt in his face. It's very good. Look it up.
That's-
It's
Who the fuck
Shaka
is this
King.
guy? Who the
Who
fuck
the
is
fuck
this
is this guy? Hey, worth my $25. Like, hey, and walk that line that really good comedy can walk. That is like really working to understand what the presentation again of like masculinity and race, how those two things are intertwined in a really interesting way. All right.
Oh,
I'm done
God.
plugging shit.
Oh my God! Well, we got one more plug, and that's all. See everybody with the soda media business.
Soda media business.
The soda media, whiskey media business. Hit them all with the whiskey media business.
The Crystal Pepsi business is good.
That's what happens when you've been doing IT all day today. Jesus Christmas.
Oh, whatever. You ain't got nothing on me, son.
Yeah, sure. You win.
So before I start the social media business, I want to say shout out to everyone on the Twitch cast. The Twitch cast was lit. I wasn't here last week. Y'all did an amazing job last week with Jason and Agents of Mayhem. That shit was dope. Great comments. If people are watching the Twitch cast and every now and then I seem to be looking off to the side and then laughing, it's because I'm looking at the feed. You fuckers are hilarious. So yeah, shout out to you guys. Also in the Twitch chat right now, I want to spend a very, very special shout out to our Chicago brother, Dan the Robot.
Absolutely.
And wish him a very happy belated birthday, because yesterday was his birthday. I love you, man.
Shout out to Dan the Robot.
Yeah.
Shout out to Dan
Happy
the Robot.
birthday, Dan the Robot.
Word.
So, without further ado, social media business is as follows. You want to follow us, go to Twitter, twitter.com/spawnonme. You want to see us or follow us individually, all our stuff is in the bio. Make sure you follow our Duchess of Diversity at Cypher of Tier. I'm not spelling that. And I need diverse games. It's CYPHEROFTYR. Cypher of Tier.
Word.
And I need diverse games is I need div GMS.
Yes.
Absolutely.
On Twitter. So you want to check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/spawnon.me. And then while you're on the interwebs checking out stuff, go to spawnon.me or esn.fm/spawnonme, where you can find this show and all of our archives, where we've had dope guests like Austin Walker before, catching some of the car disease. Mad car disease. Yeah, while you're checking all that other stuff out, make sure you check out the podcast. You can go to iTunes or NPR One or Google Play Music or Overcast, wherever your favorite podcatcher is. Put in Spawn on Me. If it's a place where you can rate, make sure you rate it. If it's a place where you can subscribe, obviously subscribe. But leave us a rating, leave us a review. It really, really helps a lot. Of course, tell your friends. Like Austin said, we think we're one of the top 10 podcasts, but we need your help in order to make sure that we actually can show the rest of the world that we are. And if you have a comment that's more than 140 characters, make sure you leave it to us via email at spawnonmepodcast@gmail.com.
Every time you say that, it makes me fucking smile and then gag. It's so funny.
Yes. I do it just for you, baby.
Really, yeah, and I love you, and I love you too. Really quick, the Austin bump is real. We talked about wanting to get to 1,000 followers on Twitch before the end of September. We started out tonight at 348. We're already almost at 500. That's craziness.
Awesome.
And
Thank you, guys.
amazing. Everyone in the chat, thank you so much for listening and rocking with us tonight. We'll be doing this again next week. We may not have a guest next week, but we're also always trying to find dope folks to bring to you on the show and have these great conversations that you will not find anywhere else. So from all of us to all of you, be really good to folks out there. When you see something, say something. Absolutely make sure that you're paying attention to the world around you. Speak up, use your voices, use your platforms. And we're going to get up out of here. And we've been the Spawn on Me podcast. We're all out. Peace.
Peace.
I want those scalps.
Later.